I would like to welcome you to our regular council meeting for Monday, February 2nd. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We do have regrets this evening from Councillor McGuire-Blaze. She is on vacation. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. Please stand for our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Director Malanjukulo for our closed meeting report this evening.
Through you. On Monday, February 2 at 4 p.m., council met in closed session pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act to discuss the following. Two different personnel matters under Section 239(2)B and 239(2)D, to provide an update on a town contract under Section 239(2)E, F, J, and K, to provide an update on a town committee under Section 239(2)B, to discuss a potential acquisition or disposition of property by the municipality under Section 239(2)C, J, and K, and to discuss a potential lease agreement under Section 239(2)J and K. And that's the extent of my report.
So, any declarations of conflicts of interest from members of council this evening? Seeing none, if you find yourself in conflict later, just let us know. I need a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the published agenda for our regular council meeting for Monday, February 2nd. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Looking for a mover and a seconder, the adoption of the minutes for the regular council meeting for January 12th. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Guerin, Councillor Mady, any questions, errors, omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Looking for the special council meeting minutes for December 1st. This was looking for a mover and a seconder to adopt them as presented. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Allard. Any questions, errors, omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously as well. Special council meeting minutes for December 15th. Looking for a mover and a seconder for these minutes. Councillor Allard, Deputy Mayor Shepley, any questions, errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. We have no public presentations this evening, nothing under unfinished business. So we will go to reports from administration. Planning 2026-04 Heritage Action Items. We have our Manager of Planning here, Miss Rita Jabor. Welcome, Rita.
The Chair, good evening. We have a short presentation for you tonight on heritage initiatives that staff and the Heritage Committee are proposing to undertake as a result of public consultation efforts that we held in 2025 as part of Heritage Week. I'm going to give Ms. Phoenix a moment to pull up the slide deck. Thank you. And we're just going to move on to the next slide if we can. Thank you. So every third week in February since 2016, the town of Essex has participated in Heritage Week to showcase the rich local history of our town. Each year, we develop a new theme for Heritage Week, which we base materials and programming on. In 2026, our theme and tagline is 10 years of celebrating our story. And that's because this year marks 10 years since we first started celebrating Heritage Week. This year, Heritage Week will be celebrated from February 16th to February 20th. Next slide, please. Thank you. In 2025, during Heritage Week, we engaged with our local heritage stakeholders, which included our heritage organizations, as well as with the owners of heritage designated properties within the town of Essex, and as well as with members of the public. And we did this through various meetings, information sessions, and open houses, as well as through feedback forms. And the purpose of that engagement was to discuss the future of heritage and cultural planning for the town of Essex, to discuss the strengths, weaknesses, threats, opportunities that our heritage organizations face, and the needs of our heritage property owners. Next slide, please. Thank you. So through the feedback, we heard from members of the community that they desired additional Indigenous representation and acknowledgement in the town's history. They desired a years-long acknowledgement of our local history, not just during Heritage Week. They wanted more information on our historic settlements. They wanted more consideration for other areas as potential heritage conservation districts in our planning documents. And they desired additional funding for heritage organizations and heritage programming. Next slide, please. Thank you. So members from the following heritage organizations gathered with members of administration during Heritage Week last year to discuss openly between the town and each other the concerns of their organizations and how the town can help. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you'll see a strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat analysis that we completed with these heritage organizations, and some of the solutions that the town proposed in concert with the heritage organizations to address those issues. And just looking at the charts and going through the list, the first issue that we identified was a lack of relationship between some of the heritage organizations and the town. And in order to combat that, we agreed that we should establish a Town of Essex Heritage Network, similar to what the province has with heritage planners across Ontario. And this would be between the town, so there'd be a central contact at the town and the heritage organizations. And the purpose of that was to keep each other updated on items relevant to each other's work. Because what we heard from different organizations is that they weren't aware of certain funding streams that other organizations were aware of. Some of them had a really hard time even getting nonprofit status. And it would have been helpful to have that network so they could actually send emails and correspond with each other so they could work together to basically for the same front, for heritage conservation. The other issue that we heard was regarding organization and communication issues between the organizations. And again, this is addressed by establishing that network, as well as designating a town liaison for those heritage organizations, which primarily lies with planning services. The other issue we heard quite strongly was funding issues from our heritage organizations. Almost all of them are under threat from a lack of funding and an increase, just like many people are experiencing an increase in the cost of living. Our heritage organizations are also experiencing increases in the cost of maintaining their facilities and their operations. And of course, that leads into the operations and maintenance issues. And in order to combat those, the town of Essex is considering revisions to the Heritage Grant with respects to potential additional funding streams for these heritage organizations to help support costs related to operations and maintenance. We also heard from our heritage organizations with respects to storage issues, and this specifically came from the Ayers, Eckers, and the Heritage Essex, which is the railway group. They have many and many of historical documents that they keep within their facilities that have to be in certain climate controlled facilities and that need space. And quite frankly, they're running out of space. We heard that they had a falling consumer base. And we also heard quite loudly that there was a lack of volunteers. So in terms of their volunteer base, normally it's a lot older because these people are retired and they have the time to volunteer. But unfortunately, due to health issues and other life issues, they're losing that core volunteer base, and they're really struggling to find volunteers who are younger and who can dedicate the time to help. And lastly, we heard, especially from Caldwell First Nations, that there was a lack of Indigenous representation in our local history. So again, in order to combat that last issue specifically, the town is committed to working alongside Caldwell First Nation to highlight the Indigenous history in this area, be it through Heritage Week programming, posts, social media posts, and throughout the year in terms of celebrating very important milestones in Indigenous history. Moving on, please. Thank you. So in terms of our heritage property owners, these are the owners of properties that are designated under the Ontario Heritage Act. We actually had last year a separate information session with them to discuss the grant opportunities, the other types of opportunities that are available exclusively to heritage property owners that the town of Essex implements, but also to hear from them in terms of their feedback on these programs and what works and what doesn't work so we can make improvements. At this meeting, we had a great turnout. 17 of our heritage property owners attended. And in terms of recommendations, we heard from them quite loudly that changes to the existing heritage grant program need to be made. They requested that we consider removing the limit on how many times a property owner can receive a heritage grant. Currently, it's limited to one application. They did express a desire for the town to consider a heritage tax program, which would be part of that heritage grant. And they also expressed a desire for an accessibility grant. This is coming specifically from those owners of commercial heritage properties, which would help make their buildings more accessible to all members of our population. They also identified a desire for more plaquing efforts along our greenway in each of our settlement areas to help convey the history of what was once a settlement area, but is now all part of the town of Essex. They were very accommodating of revisions to the property standards bylaw to encompass designated heritage properties. And they were receptive of revisions to their bylaws to clearly identify what is a heritage attribute so that there is less fear when it comes time for a designation. And in general, we just gave general information on what they can do as a heritage property owner as per the Heritage Act, as per their bylaws. And we explained the types of changes that would be permitted and what designation means. Next slide, please. So taking all the feedback into consideration, as well as the information we got at the information sessions and at the meeting with our heritage organizations, we identified the common themes that we heard through consultation, and we provided a heritage action item list with targeted items that we want to accomplish or that we have accomplished to address some of these common themes. So, for example, the first one is including more Indigenous related history in our programming, our social media posts, and through our recognitions. Our target timeframe for this is ongoing. And in terms of budget impact, there really isn't. We can easily do this throughout the year using our social media. Secondly, is to deliver more social media posts and programming related to local history year-round and not just during Heritage Week. And of course, this would be an ongoing timeframe, and there would be no operational budget issues. Thirdly, is to consider additional heritage conservation districts within our official plan. And luckily, we're going through a new official plan exercise. So in terms of our target timeframe, we are working on that with the hopes that the new official plan will be completed soon. And that is captured in existing capital budgets. The establishment of a Town of Essex Heritage Network was a very important action item, and that has now been completed. We actually prepared the network last year, and we've had several interactions with our heritage organizations, which have made a big impact on information sharing. We are also looking to review our heritage grant program for new grant opportunities, which we're hoping to present to council in winter of 2026. We are exploring the creation of a heritage tax rebate program, which we're hoping to provide any recommendations, if any, by spring of 2027. Next slide, please. So this is the last set of action items. We are working with our legal and legislative department on amending property standards bylaw to include designated heritage properties. And that's expected to be completed in either the fall of 2026 or 2027 with no budget impacts. We are looking at developing a heritage newsletter for the town of Essex for general information on heritage matters, which we are looking to initiate in winter of 2026 with no budget impacts. We are reviewing each designation bylaw to ensure heritage attributes are better defined. And that's something we're looking to undertake once we have some staff support in summer of 2026. And we're also considering the preparation of a cultural master plan to assist in managing cultural spaces. And that's more long-term, but it's expected to be undertaken sometime in 2028 to 2030. And of course, there will be capital budget impacts, but that'll be presented at the time of budget. So that concludes our presentation. I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Questions, comments from members of council this evening? Deputy Mayor Shepley?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering on a couple of questions, trying to get them in order here. On removing the limits that they can apply for, is there a concern that then we would have stacking, like multiple grants being approved for one property? Is there but any consideration of that?
The criteria for multiple applications, we haven't quite developed that yet. But we'll take that into consideration in conversations with our heritage property owners. But the intent is to allow them, especially those who've received a significant grant, to allow them to apply in a few years down the road, because there might be additional major renovations that need to be made over time.
Okay, and then for creation of a heritage district, can you walk me through what that would look like? So I'm trying to understand what the effects would be for say Harrow, if that was considered that district or whatever.
I'm going to do my best to summarize this. So a heritage conservation district is an area would be an area within the town of Essex, which has a specific history. And that history is illustrated through its buildings, through its roads, through street names. And it's defined in your official plan. And the official plan would impose certain policies that are above and beyond what policies you have for the rest of the town of Essex and that are specific to that district. So just like a heritage designation bylaw will manage development on a single property, a heritage conservation district would manage development within a larger area.
Okay, and then lastly, you'll come back to council obviously with any estimated like tax implications if we were to provide any sort of relief to the heritage homes?
Thank you, Chair. Absolutely. Any amendments to the grant program would come to council.
You, Chair. Just I guess in line with the Deputy Mayor's question there about stacking grants, we would make, or is there any considerations on making it possible where if the property has multiple buildings on it that are designated, that they'd be able to apply for the different grants for the different buildings?
A very good suggestion. We'll add that to our consideration.
Through you, and just to help elaborate with that, a lot of times with heritage buildings, when they're doing renovations and stuff like that, to keep it heritage, they have to actually go back to old construction ways, and that's quite a bit more expensive. So I can see where applying for another grant to do those things would come very handy.
Thank you for the report. Any other questions from any members of council? I have a few myself. I really like the idea of a heritage conservation district, especially around the old schoolhouse in Colchester. That's one that I've read in multiple plans that I think we should hopefully maybe in the next term of council work on that. I would like to see us look at that heritage grant. I really want to support that, especially for the organizations that seem to come to the community partnership grant every year. We know through the other heritage report we received from a couple different departments earlier this year that there's a huge discrepancy between our heritage groups in our municipality. And many of them are applying to get dollars, which distracts them from actually heritage conservation. So I think, personally, if I was here in the new term of council, I'd like to see like a heritage strat plan or a heritage plan where we're not looking at the community partnership grant for our heritage organizations, where they're pulled out completely and looked at separately so that we can support them in another capacity in a more fair and equitable manner. And I think council has to make a decision. If we're going to support heritage organizations, we're probably going to have to dedicate money towards that. The heritage newsletter, I have talked to a few heritage groups, and I'm worried that if we put a lot of onus on the heritage groups to do the newsletter, that it's just almost creating more work for them. So that's just one thing that I'm worried about. I think a lot of the groups send us newsletters. I read most of them when I can, and they're really good. I just don't want to make anything that's more cumbersome for any of the groups. So yeah, I think definitely one of the things we need to look at, and I'll mention it again when we talk about our community partnership grants, is looking at heritage holistically, separate from that. And also, Mr. Bohr, I noticed we're just receiving this report. Is there any action items? Like, do you want us to endorse any of these in principle, or, the proposed heritage action items? Like, I really would like, maybe next time when we talk about this, we can have like a solid endorsement of these items, because I think this is great. I was really excited to read this, and I thought it was proactive and it's summarized. I like the leadership that our staff took. I want to make sure that, if there's an election or, I don't want this to fall by the wayside. I want this to be incorporated in our strategic and in some. So I want to make sure that council is supporting it in some capacity. Maybe that's for another day, but anything else from anybody else? Okay, at this time, I will look for a mover and a seconder that we receive the heritage action items prepared by Mr. Bohr. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Mady, any further questions, comments? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Moving on to our Heritage Grant Program Annual Report. Mr. Bohr again.
The purpose of this report is to provide council with an update on applications that have been made under the Town of Essex Heritage Grant Program. The Town of Essex Heritage Grant Program was adopted in 2017, and it provides for financial incentives to the owners of designated properties for the purpose of completing repairs and alterations to the heritage resources, which is normally, when it's a private property, it's normally a home, but it could be a commercial business as well. And the grant consists of three main programs. The first program is the Professional Heritage Service Grant, which provides up to $2,000 for the services of a architect, a historian, a landscape architect, an engineer, someone within the design profession who can give advice to a heritage property owner who's looking to restore, repair, or reconstruct an element of their heritage resource. The other heritage grant program that's available is the Development Permit Fee Grant Program, which covers 100% of the cost if a heritage property owner needs a Planning Act application or a building permit to support the repair or the restoration. And finally, the biggest grant is the Repair and Restoration Grant, which covers 50% of the costs of repairs and restorations up to $10,000. So on the table that's provided on page 3 of the report, we have provided you with a summary of all the heritage property owners who received a grant from 2018 to 2025. And it also details the program that they got, as well as the amount of money that they received. And you'll see by reviewing the summary chart that in the first 6 years of the grant program, uptake was actually pretty slow. And this was due primarily because we didn't have a large inventory of private heritage properties that would qualify on our heritage register. So since 2024, as you all know, we've undertaken this enormous project where we've designated more private properties because of Bill 23. The uptake of the grant has increased steadily, and interest in the grant program is growing as we have more eligible property owners that could tap into this grant program. And for us staff, the grant program was actually a very valuable tool when we were working with those heritage property owners to get them to consider a heritage designation. It was one of the reasons why they were okay with it, because there was financial supports. And I want to just say this, a heritage grant is actually very rare for other municipalities in Essex County. Essex has probably one of the only grants in Essex County. So as was discussed in the previous presentation, staff is working on amendments to the Heritage Grant Program to continue to improve the uptake of the grants and as well as the accessibility of the grants for other types of services. So as a result, we are expecting more applications and interest in the program in 2026, and we're going to continue to monitor funding levels. Thank you.
Any questions, comments from members of council? Deputy Mayor Shepley?
When we're looking at increasing the grants, I want to make sure that we're not doing it in a way where we're incentivizing people, like we're using it as a lever to kind of encourage people to sign away and go for that heritage designation. So that'd be my only concern with it at all at this point in time.
Comments from members of council? Mr. Board, do we have a place on our website where people can go and look at our heritage designated homes?
Sure, yes, we do. We have a heritage registry, which legally we have to keep and we have to make public. So it is on our website. We also have dedicated web pages to the Heritage Grant Program too.
At this point, I will get the motion on the table and then we can further discuss. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the Heritage Grant Program Annual Report be received. Councilor Verbeek, Councilor Allard. And so this is one of the items that was in our delegation of authority bylaw that we asked to have an annual report on. So great to get that annual report. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Moving on to economic development, corporate-wide grant funding annual update. We'll go to Nelson Silvera, our Manager of Economic Development. Welcome, Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to give council a brief update on grant applications submitted in 2025. So as you can see in the report, there were 32 total grant applications that the town of Essex submitted. That's in contrast to 13 applications submitted in 2024. And it represents quite a big increase in grant funding received by the town of Essex. So $525,000 in approved funding was secured in 2025. And that supported a range of different initiatives from electric vehicle charging stations in Essex and Harrow, youth summer employment opportunities in the town of Essex, equipment and entertainment for the Essex Fun Fest, equipment and mental health supports for the fire department, new accessibility lifts at the Essex Recreation Complex, recreation and senior programming across the municipality, and environmental initiatives across the municipality. So there are also several large-scale projects that are still under review by those grant organizations that we have applied to. That's a 83% increase in grant funding from 2024. Yeah, if there's any questions from council, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions, comments from members of council? Councilor Verbeek.
You, Madam Mayor, I guess I'll start with just a comment. Kudos, bravo, up 83% this year. $525,000 in approved grants is pretty impressive. I will say I did notice that a couple of the outstanding ones that are pending are pretty large and significant, and I wonder if we couldn't direct our mayor and our CAO to perhaps request a meeting with our MPP and see if he could advocate, him and his staff could assist in moving these pending files a little further along.
Of course. Any other questions from members of council? Questions, comments? At this time, I'll look for a mover and a seconder that the corporate-wide grant funding annual update be received and that the mayor and the CAO will be meeting with upper levels of government. I think there's some federal asks in there too. Okay, looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Hammond. Any questions? All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Moving on to Essex Tourism Events Fund annual report. Looking for a mover and a seconder that this report be received. Moved by Councillor Hammond, Councillor Mady. Any questions? Pretty straightforward. All in favor? and that is carried. Economic Development 2026-02. We have our building report and development overview, our annual summary for 2025. Director Chadwick is here if there are any questions from council. At this time, I'll look for a mover and a seconder that the report be received for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Infrastructure Services, moving on to our 2025 flood event. At this point, I'll get a mover and a seconder on the floor in that, and then we'll go through it. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the Infrastructure Services report be received and that council direct administration to amend bylaw 2366, being a subsidy program bylaw, to remove the requirement for a minimum of 2 quotes. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Verbeek. We'll go to Director Gerard to give us some highlights of this very exciting, anticipated report.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, and through you. So this report responds directly to council's motions following the September 24th, 2025 flooding event in Harrow and Colchester. The corresponding storm produced approximately 190 millimeters, or approximately 7.5 inches of rain over a 24-hour period, with extreme hourly intensities that far exceed the design capacity of our drainage and sanitary system. While infrastructure generally performed as designed, the volume of rain caused widespread surcharging, localized road and basement flooding, and significant strain on drainage systems. During the event, staff responded quickly, mobilizing inspections, clearing blockages, monitoring pump stations, and responding to resident service calls. Importantly, no sanitary bypasses or treatment overflows were released into the environment. The report also provides council with a detailed inventory of municipal drains along the County Road 50 corridor, with a grayscale map that shows the topography of the area. The light colors in the map represent the highest elevations, and the dark colors are the lowest. This map was presented to residents who attended the drainage open house on November 26, 2025. As council requested, the report also confirms that while council does have the authority under the Drainage Act to initiate improvements, the scale of upgrades required to address storms of this magnitude would be cost prohibitive and subject to appeal under the Drainage Act, making resident-initiated projects the most practical approach. Finally, as part of the report, administration reviewed the town's current flooding subsidy program. The program uptake remains low, and based on resident and council feedback that getting multiple quotes is a barrier to some to access subsidies, administration is recommending removal of the 2-quote requirement to improve accessibility and participation. Overall, this report, along with the continued need for flood resilience, reinforces the need for continued flood mitigation planning, resident education, and long-term servicing strategies, all which can be addressed in a future master servicing plan. Happy to take any questions.
Deputy Mayor Shepley first.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the report, and I want to acknowledge all the work that the staff did on this extremely challenging event that we went through. And the data is clear on it that it was an extraordinary rainfall and exceeded the design for our municipal systems. And I also appreciate the honesty of what we can expect from our system. I mean, further to that, removing the 2-quote, I support that as well. I think if we want our residents to protect themselves, that's a great start. What I wondered though, because we've heard in the past some suggestions when we talk about the beach roads, for instance, that we would look at taking one over once a year. That was a suggestion that came, and well, that's admirable that we would look at that. I think if we're going to look at doing anything to that nature, would it be possible that we take a look at a drain, maybe a municipal drain out that way, and look at a possibility of us partnering with the residents or something to that nature to help maybe improve a drain even if it's every 5 years, something that we as a council could do or future councils could do to look at partnering with those residents. And maybe we can get the province to come alongside. I know it's private property, but maybe we could get them to come alongside and help us out with this. Because if we do nothing and we wait for the residents to pay for it on their own, I mean, I wouldn't want to pay for it until I flooded, and then I would wish I had paid for it. But that's that hindsight 2020 vision. So I'm wondering if that's a possibility. I mean, I know it's a lot to ask, but I didn't know if you had any comments to that whatsoever.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So Partnering with the residents isn't really the difficult thing. We provide a lot of information related to drainage. We have a dedicated staff that are here to support that. The messaging has been consistent, whether it was the 1989 flood, 2023 or 2025. It's a user pay system. To trigger improvements only takes one person on that drain to trigger improvements to the drain, and to date we've received very few, even since the 2023 flood. What we have seen is development and growth in the area, which is proposed to go in the area that is looking to shed water into those drains and actually improving them. So you'll note from your inventory list, the Langlois Arner drain is a good example of that, where we're seeing the Colchester Heights development occur, and they're actually improving that system to a 1 in 100 year design from the existing 1 in 2 year design. So growth and development is going to be one thing that's going to help, bring in partnership with the area and existing residents improvements to the drainage system. When it comes to assuming and improving beach roads, that's always been a difficult discussion. It has been for a long time. But we've always taken the stance as an administration that if somebody wanted to proceed with something like that, that we would want the improvements occur as part of the storm system and municipal drainage work. So if a beach road did decide that they wanted to proceed with a local improvement, we would likely warn those people that we are going to trigger the Drainage Act to improve this drainage in the area, just because we're not going to complete an entire, revitalization of an area and not improve the drainage.
Appreciate the comments, and that the 1 in 100 year improvement that's happening in that drain, it's, it's so vital to that area. And I'm glad to see that that's happening with the development that's going there, that they're getting that relief from that drain. And maybe as more development comes, we can improve those drains. Thank you for that report.
Chair, and to Mr. Gerard, you mentioned that any significant improvement would be way out of the cost of the town alone. Could you give me an example of what type of improvement would make a significant impact on Harrow that we can't afford?
So when I'm making a statement about improvements becoming cost prohibitive, it's mostly because a storm that we experienced of this magnitude is well in excess of a 100-year event. So the amount or the size and of the infrastructure that would need to go in to handle a storm in excess of a 100-year event is very cost prohibitive when you're talking about the amount of residents that would be on that drain and would have to pay for it. So to give an example, if the total cost of a project is $1 million, all those people have to pay their portion of that drain improvement. And because the improvement needs to be so large, the sewer sizes would need to be so big, the pumps would need to be so large, it would be very cost prohibitive for the residents to pay for that.
Follow up on that. I wasn't so much worried about the cost, but more the improvement itself. What might it be? Has there been given any thought as to actual remedies to our flooding issues rather than being cost prohibitive?
So there's no one solution for all the drains in the Colchester area. So each area would need to be evaluated separately. It would need to be studied and evaluated for what improvement could be made or what the infrastructure engineering solution would be. Some of those might be an open drain. Some of them may be a closed drain with an outlet into the lake. Some of them may be a pump station. There's a variety of solutions that may exist, and there's no one size fits all when it comes to these types of things. And like I mentioned in my statement and within the report, what a master servicing study will actually do is comprehensively study an area and evaluate individual systems through extensive modeling to come up with potential solutions to improve existing areas. So that is what the intent is of a master servicing study, and our hopes in achieving that strategic goal going forward to come up with those types of solutions and evaluating whether they are practical and feasible for the town and its residents.
Other members of council this evening? Councilor Mady?
To you, Chair. Thank you very much for doing the report. There's a lot of great information in here. Some what I would call a little disappointing information too is on the disaster recovery assistance that only 22 applicants and they only received $90,000 for the amount of damage and destruction that was done out there. That seems like a real low amount. I would hope that maybe we can bring that to the attention of some of our upper levels of government, that this really needs to be revised, and that people at this time really needed that money, and a lot of them didn't receive it. There was homes lost, there was families destroyed. It was a huge problem that happened in our town. To the talks about a little bit off the subject there, sharing the roads or taking over the roads and stuff. I do live in an area that we did see the benefits of this. We had our drain upgraded. The town came in, repaved our roads. All of a sudden, our infill problem kind of went away. We had lots of houses that got built in my neighborhood, and it turned out to be a really thriving thing. So it was a really positive from 1998 till present on how it could work. And I would like to see us explore all these options on how we can make something like that work. I know it's a great piece of advice, and I really hope that someday we could have more talks around that. And I'm super happy to see that barometer on helping the residents in Ward 3 is coming forward, and I do appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Director Gerard, I do have a couple questions myself. So this additional report, can we put this on our website under our drainage section where our other report is? And it's kind of like one-stop shopping for the Ward 3 drains, where residents have, if they ask us, I live on the Star subdivision drain, when has it been redone? I can say, it hasn't been looked at since 1989. It's a user pay system. I also want to thank our administration for that drainage open house we held in November. It was really well attended, and I think we got a lot of information out there. I still believe a lot of our residents do not understand how drainage works in the municipality. It's very complicated. So I think, getting it out there that if you live in an urban area, you pay an urban levy, and that's, takes care of your stormwater. If you live in a rural area, that is a rural levy, and you fall under the Drainage Act for drainage. So I also love removing the red tape from the subsidy program. I was trying to do that in April, so I'm glad we're doing that because I'm really happy about that. I think it will help get the word out. Maybe in the future in our tax inserts or something, or maybe even print ads on the paper, on our social media, we put out the subsidy again and again. I do see it from time to time on our Essex social media. I'd love to see it get out there. We have a flood and then we put the subsidy information out there. I'd love us to routinely, and we do. I just want us to keep doing that. And Director Gerard, one of the things that I've noticed, we do a lot about flooding, but we often don't talk about it, and the residents don't really hear about it. But this year, and then even back in my Facebook memories, I'm seeing old ones from the town of Essex where we've done the smoke and fog testing in Ward 3 in different areas. Do you know roughly how much a year in 2025 or how much we're looking to spend in 2026 on these kind of initiatives? And can you just speak real quickly on what inflow and infiltration is and what we're working to try to stop, please?
Through you, so inflow and infiltration is the entering of stormwater or groundwater into the sanitary system. So we don't want that to happen because stormwater infrastructure is very large and handled to take on large volumes of water, where sanitary systems are not, and they're a much smaller pipe. So having stormwater in the sanitary system causes flooding, it causes surcharging, and increases the risk of basement flooding. So the town has taken a strong stance to try and curb the inflow and infiltration. In 2025 and 2026, council approved $105,000 in INI monies to do fog testing and complete repairs in both 25 and 26. And we continue to do fog testing, which is the putting vapor, like harmless vapor, into the sanitary system and looking for where that vapor exits the system. And looking for areas where it's not supposed to be exiting the system. So if it's exiting through the front yards of people's houses or into the homes, those identify cross connections and issues with the system. So we've been doing that for multiple years now, and council's been supporting that for the last couple of years at over $100,000.
Mr. Gerard, so I'll have my personal final comments on Ward 3 and the drains that were studied between Colchester Village and County Road 41, which is really good to see that comprehensive list. And I still have huge concerns myself personally about developing lands south of County Road 50 on that area of our municipality. We do, I don't know, I'll show it up here. We could have pulled it up there, but anything that is black is low-lying areas. So, you know, when we're putting shovels in the ground down here, I'm still worried. And I know that we're doing a lot of drainage works on each new development, but we can't escape the fact that if you go from Harrow to the lake south, there's 10 meters of elevation difference. So I'd like to have future talks with Essex Region Conservation Authority about, you know, the water that is flowing over the land, not so much the water coming from the sky. I think we're managing the water coming from the sky, but we're calling it from IRCA in the county, we're calling it sheet water. And I'm not sure we're properly understanding that. And that's something that I think we need to have further discussions on, not tonight, going forward, because I think I don't want to be the mayor in 50 years where people look back and say, why did you allow more homes in that area? Because right now I'm looking to where some homes are and I'm saying, why did previous councils allow homes in that area? And I don't want to continue. I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So do we have a mover and a seconder? Yeah. Okay, any other questions to this report? Thank you for putting it together. Lots more to do in future budgets. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Moving on to another very exciting report, our master servicing plan. I'll get a mover and a seconder on the table and then Director Gerard will speak to it. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the infrastructure services report be received and that council appoints Stantec Consulting Limited to provide engineering services for project 2416, the servicing master plan, in the amount of $499,000, not including HST, to conduct a master servicing study, and that council authorize additional funding of $88,000 from the water reserves and $82,000 from the urban levy reserve. Looking for a mover and a seconder on this motion, please. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Mayor Bondi, Director Gerard.
And through you. So this report seeks council's approval to initiate a town-wide servicing master plan for water, wastewater, and stormwater systems. The town is currently relying on a collection of individual servicing and environmental assessment studies that are or becoming outdated, are fragmented, and not fully aligned with current growth pressures or evolving climate conditions, such as the increasing frequency of extreme weather events. As a result, infrastructure decisions are being made without a single integrated servicing framework. The master servicing plan will provide a comprehensive system-wide technical assessment of existing capacity, future demand, and performance under both growth and climate stress scenarios. This includes identifying where infrastructure upgrades, extensions, or operational changes are required to support plan development while improving resilience to more intense rainfall and inflow and infiltration. The plan will also align infrastructure priorities with the town's updated official plan, and by aligning infrastructure timing with growth and capacity constraints, the plan reduces the risk of premature capital spending, emergency repairs, and unplanned draws on reserves while supporting orderly and sustainable development. This initiative also directly satisfies one of council's strategic plan goals under safe and reliable infrastructure, which is to embrace asset management best practices to build, maintain, and continuously improve our municipally owned infrastructure. Administration is recommending Stantec Consulting complete the project due to their detailed knowledge of Essex's systems and existing hydraulic model development and retention, which allows this work to proceed efficiently and with reduced risk. Overall, the master servicing plan is a foundational tool to support sustainable growth, climate resilience, and long-term infrastructure reliability for the town. I'm happy to take any questions.
I'm excited about this. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Hammond.
I see some of these projects have been going on almost 25 years. Should they not have been done by now, like particularly the Essex Series Works Class C? Well, help me out here.
Chair. So the list of projects and studies that were listed in the report are a list of all active, they're all studies that we rely on as an infrastructure group. And they're also studies as an example of the ones that Stantec had assisted the municipality in preparing. So they're not all active EAs. An EA actually goes stale after 10 years. So many of those EAs post 10 years ago are actually not active EAs anymore. And most of the work has been completed through them. So the sewage works EA for Essex, for instance, was used to develop the Essex pollution control plan on North Malden. That project is completed.
Mady, did you have your hand up?
And through you, Chair. Yeah, as the previous report was one on a really dark day in Ward 3, very tragic day. This report does bring a little excitement, a little look into the future on where we could plan for some smart development. And the fact that, like I said, in my neighborhood, we improved our sewer. We had our roads done by the town, and our infill problem seemed to vanish, and we had new homes be built in the neighborhood. It didn't take a big development to trigger that. It was local. It was done by the people that were there. So it's not necessarily has to get driven by development for these improvements. Some smart planning and some improvements can make these things happen. So this could really show where we should be improving and where we should be directing some of our growth. And I think it'll be a great chance for us to have some really good conversations coming from this. So I am excited to see this come.
Members of council wishing to speak? We have a mover and a seconder. Okay, seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Moving on to Office of the CEO Drusevich to give us an update on our 2023-2027 Strategic Action Plan annual progress.
Thank you, through the chair. The 2023 to 2027 Strategic Action Plan was developed through extensive consultation with yourselves and began in March of 2023, led by a consulting firm known as Linton Consulting. It was an inclusive process, which included workshops with council and administration, surveys to our residents, businesses, different organizations, as well as town staff. And since 2023, we have been, as a senior administration, developing annual progress reports to ensure that there's transparency and accountability around the strategic plan. It also supports ongoing dialogue between council and administration, and each year we post this to the town's website. As of December 31st, 2025, you can see that all of the strategic action plan items have been initiated. 64% are considered 100% complete, and over 85% are over halfway complete. So this progress reflects the town's strong commitment to delivering on council's set priorities for this term of council. The strategic plan will continue to guide council's decision-making throughout the next year, and it will direct the resource planning as well as budget allocations into the next year. Council's strategic plan will end in 2027, and so it does extend beyond this term of council, at which point the new term of council would begin the creation of a new plan. If anyone has any questions regarding the report, I'd be happy to answer them or defer them to the director in charge of the project.
Any questions from members of council this evening? Councilor Mady.
Not a question, but just more of a comment. It looks like these reports went 1, 2, 3 for a reason. I remember when we took on this project and we were first coming together as this council and talking about it and reading that what our residents were telling us was that their first main priority was their roads. And we took that and we ran with it and we did some terrific work with it to the point now where our first main request from our residents was flooding and drainage issues. And I see us making the improvements for that. So I'm glad we did this plan. I think it was a great exercise, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of it. Thank you very much on that.
Questions, comments from any members of council? I just have one, perhaps to Director Gerard. What is the difference between the roads master plan and our 5-year capital plan? I know there is a difference. I'm just looking for a further understanding, please.
For you. So the 5-year capital forecast is what council receives as part of your annual budget now. Council received it in principle in its first year in 2024. which is a 5-year plan that we create internally for our roads and infrastructure improvements that we forecast out for 5 years, and then our roads for 10. Whereas the roads master plan is the transportation master plan that council approved in the capital budget, which we are looking to put out for RFP this year. So with a completion in 2027. So we're still on track in terms of the deadlines within the strategic plan, and working towards those last couple of goals under the safe and reliable infrastructure.
My only other comment about strategic planning is I've been here a little while now, and I feel like strategic plans are good for 4 years. And I know council terms are good for 4 years, but I'd like us in the new term of council to think a little bit longer, even though we're only here for 4 years, just to kind of look at, I've read the town of Kingsville, their strategic action plan is 2040. So it gives you like a little bit, like if you're only just looking 4 years, 4 years, 4 years, it could be kind of short-sighted. So I'm hoping that we have some look into the expanded future, because we have many amazing staff who we hope that will be here, even though we come and go. Looking for a mover and a seconder that we receive the report. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek, any other questions, comments? All in favor of receiving that? Thank you. That's carried. Legal and Legislative Services, 2026-02. We have an update from Director Malanjukulo on the Windsor Canada Utilities Advisory Committee.
Mayor Bondi, through you. As a term of the sale by the town of the shares of ELK Energy Inc. to Windsor Canada Utilities Limited, the parent company of N1 Utilities, Windsor Canada Utilities has agreed to establish for a period of up to 5 years an advisory committee composed of 5 volunteers who are appointed by the town to facilitate communication and information exchange between Windsor Canada Utilities, N1 Utilities, and the town. A primary objective of this committee is to make annual funding recommendations with regard to Windsor Canada Utilities' commitment through the share purchase agreement of $350,000 in donations of approximately $70,000 per year over 5 years to help fund local community initiatives within the municipal boundaries of Lakeshore, Essex, and Kingsville. In closed session tonight, council was able to review the applications of those who applied to the town for nomination to the advisory committee. The 5 nominees being suggested tonight are being suggested for an appointment of a 1-year term expiring on February 28, 2027. Those 5 nominees are Town of Essex Councilmember Rodney Hammond, Municipality of Lakeshore Mayor Tracy Bailey, Town of Kingsville Deputy Mayor Kim DeYoung, Essex resident and ELK customer Peter Solman, and Essex resident and ELK customer Luke Postos. After council approves the list of nominees, the town clerk will send the names to the Windsor Canada Utilities Commission for their consideration.
Looking for a mover, Deputy Mayor Shepley.
The recommendation that we look at nominee or Kim DeYoung as Deputy Mayor Kim DeYoung from Kingsville as the chair of that. She worked very hard on the ELK board and was very engaged for her community. And I think she'll do a fantastic job. That would be my recommendation.
So that is moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley that we direct the clerk to provide those names to Windsor Canada Utilities Limited with we're also proposing the chair to be Deputy Mayor Kim DeYoung. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Allard, any questions to this motion? I want to thank everybody for putting their names forward for this committee. It's always great to see multiple names come forward and people wanting to be engaged. All in favor? That's carried. Reports from our youth members. Unfortunately, our youth members could not be in attendance tonight, but they sent us with a report. Tonight, or right now, is the first ever time that Essex District High School swim team are the WEC SSAA champions, making them one of only 3 schools ever to do so. And they attributed this success to the amazing facility and staff at the Essex Rec Complex, which allowed swimmers to develop and to compete to their full potential. So thank you for representing us, and thank you to all of our staff at our recreational complex. That is a joint facility that we have this great agreement with the school board. So looking to receive that report from the youth members, I guess. Councillor Hammond, Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor? That's carried. no county council update tonight, Deputy Mayor? You do have one? Okay.
County Council report for January 21st. Heart Hub update. Council received an update on the newly opened Heart Hub serving Essex County. The hub opened on November 28th, 2025, after Essex County successfully partnered with local agencies to secure provincial funding through Ontario's Ministry of Health. The Heart Hub brings together mental health care, addictions treatment, primary care, housing supports, food and nutrition services, and peer support under one coordinated model, helping people access the right supports when they need them. County Council also received a 2025 annual CAO report, which highlights organizational achievements, challenges, and priorities, all aligned with the county's 2024-2027 strategic plan. The report looks back at leadership, service delivery, and regional collaboration, and also outlines areas of focus for upcoming year and new term of council. Council received a report on proposed regional employment land strategy and authorized funding to address a budget shortfall so consulting services can move forward. This work will help council make informed decisions about future employment lands and long-term economic planning across the region. Council approved support for a joint bid with the City of Windsor to host AMO annual conference from 2028 to 2031. Previous conference hosted here brought significant economic benefits to the region, and council authorized the CAO to co-sign the submission with the City of Windsor. That'd be pretty exciting. We'd all be able to attend and go home at night, sleep in our own bed. And lastly, a notice of motion from Mayor Bondi was received, a notice of motion requesting written information on the cost effectiveness and public education efforts related to the Green Bin program. This motion will be debated at a future council meeting. The council meeting that will be debated on is February 4th, and I just want to add to that, there'll be if you were looking for any frequently asked questions, you can find answers for the Green Bin frequently asked questions on countyofessex.ca or EssexWindsorSolidWasteAuthority.org, EWSWA.org. And we're also going to be discussing a summary of council direction and funding for the Green Bin. And then lastly, we will be discussing the development charges for a county. So if you're interested in those items, you should probably tune in on Wednesday or show up. Thank you.
Looking for a motion to receive the county council update. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Guerin, all in favor? That's carried. Correspondence to be received, we'll receive all of the items, and then if members of council wish to go back and address anyone in particular, we can. Looking for a mover and a seconder for all of the correspondence in agenda item 13.1. Moved by Councillor Mady, Councillor Hammond. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Any particular items of correspondence that any members of council wish to pull out? Councillor Verbeek.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The first one is 13.1.2 from the Township of Brudenell, Linduck, and Raglan on affordable rental housing. And it's a letter to the province just requesting they provide protections against excessive and malicious rent increases for all rental units. That pretty much sums it up, and I'm hoping that we can also send a letter of support.
By Councillor Verbeek that we support 13.1.2. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Allard, any other questions on that motion or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any other items of correspondence any members of council wish to pull out? Seeing none and correspondence to be received and supported, we have a resignation of Tiffany Desjardins from the Essex Festival Committee. Looking for a mover, or we'll do it all. Do we do it all? Okay, we'll do both resignations. And the resignation of Joanne Kahn, poured from the Affordable Housing Task Force. Looking to receive both of them with regret and thanks. Moved by Councillor Verbeek, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Councillor Verbeek, your mic is on. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Looking for, we have a correspondence from Fibromyalgia Association Canada. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the correspondence from Fibromyalgia Association Canada be received and supported, and that council proclaim May 12th, 2026 as Fibromyalgia Awareness Day in the town of Essex. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Allard. Councillor Allard. Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Shepley and Director Malajuklo.
Bondi, through you. Whereas Fibromyalgia Awareness Day aims to raise awareness and end the stigma and discrimination that accompany this chronic illness. Whereas Fibromyalgia Association Canada is the only national organization in Canada that supports only fibromyalgia. Whereas fibromyalgia affects about 5% of Canada's population, over 200,000 men, women, and children of all ages, 2 million men, women, and children of all ages and races in Canada are afflicted with this chronic illness. Whereas fibromyalgia often takes an average of 3 to 5 years to diagnose. Whereas there is no known cause of prevention of or cure of fibromyalgia. Whereas fibromyalgia is a complex illness whose symptoms vary widely and may include debilitating chronic pain, overwhelming fatigue, and cognitive impairment. Whereas patients with fibromyalgia often have a number of coexisting conditions, which may include chronic myofascial pain, irritable bowel syndrome, temporal mandibular joint disorder, environmental sensitivities, anxiety, and depression. Whereas fibromyalgia greatly reduces quality of life, can cause total disability, and also affect families, friends, and employers. Living with chronic pain and fatigue on a daily basis can lead to social isolation. So it is important for sufferers and their families, friends, and caregivers to know that they are not alone. Whereas people with fibromyalgia have a right to be treated with dignity and have a right to pain relief. Whereas together we will find ways to enhance the quality of lives for people affected by fibromyalgia and together find a cure. And whereas the town of Essex encourages local businesses and community members to participate by illuminating key landmarks in purple for Fibromyalgia Awareness Day.
Hello, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Therefore, I, Sherry Bondi, Mayor of the town of Essex, on behalf of the town council and the community at large, hereby do proclaim May 12th, 2026 as Fibromyalgia Awareness Day in the town of Essex. We are on to committee meeting minutes, looking for a motion that the committee meeting minutes listed in agenda item 14 be received and approved and supported. And we just have the Coan Park Committee, November 12th. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Verbeek, seconded by Councillor Mady. Any questions? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Moving on to notices of motion.
Deputy Mayor Shepley, through you. The following notice of motion was presented at the January 12, 2026 regular council meeting and is being brought forth this evening for council's consideration. Moved by Mayor Bondi that Town of Essex Council direct administration to consider enhancements to animal control regarding dogs off leash in the town of Essex, including public education, increased signage, and continued enforcement measures.
And looking for a seconder, seconded by Councillor Verbeek. Mayor Bondi, would you like to speak to your motion?
Mayor Shepley, this is something that I know we do some things on, just looking to see if maybe we can heighten our social media on it, which we have been doing, maybe even put a paper ad in our paper. A lot of people seem to think that it's okay to walk with their dog off leash. They do it at parks. They do it sometimes, on their front yard, which is fine if their dog stays on their front yard. But then now I'm getting reports of dogs running off front yards, attacking people, walking down the road. So it really is becoming a thing. And I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want any animals to get hurt. I don't want anybody to get bitten. I don't want any accidental dog fights due to just the nature of dogs or animals being dogs. So just looking to see if we can maybe have a recap of what we already do and then look at, throwing maybe a few more hours at it in public education. And so the residents know that we're serious and cracking down. Thank you.
The motion. Councillor Allard.
On committee, Dog Pound Committee has a meeting on March 26th, so we hope we get some answers.
Questions? We'll call the roll. All in favor? And that carries.
Reports and announcements from council members. Reports and announcements from council members. We'll start with Counselor Guerin on that side.
Harrow and Colchester South Chamber of Commerce Annual General Meeting on February the 12th at 7 p.m. in the community room at Harrow Arena. The guest speaker will be Frank Abruzzi, President of Alpha KOR, 37-year-old business and technology leader, recognized as the king of networking. You can RSVP through the chamber webpage. Should be a good listen, snacks and refreshments, and his business card draw. Look forward to seeing you all there.
Report tonight.
Nothing to report tonight.
I just want to make a shout out to someone in our community. Miss Barbara Jane Cunningham is going to turn 90 years old on February 5th. And many, many people in this community will know her for probably 50 plus years working in the Salvation Army food banks. And she's probably made hundreds of quilts for many, many town babies. So happy birthday, Miss Barbara Cunningham.
Your report.
Bylaws that require a third and final reading. Bylaw 2504 being a bylaw that requires a third and final reading, finally passed on February 2nd. That is to confirm the proceedings of our January 12th meeting. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Mady, any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Bylaws requiring a first and second reading. Bylaw 2507 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the February 2nd council meeting to be read a first, second time, provisionally adopted February 2nd. Councillor Guerin, Councillor Allard, any questions? All in favor? That's carried. And now I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Mady, any questions? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Have a good evening, everybody.